Welcome to Nugget 337 with Steve and Dana Groman. We are going to launch into a series on space.
Yeah, this will be kind of like an out-of-this-world series, huh?
Yeah, and it's going to be focused on primarily sites in New Mexico. A few months back, we were in Alamogordo, and one of the things that we really wanted to go to was the Space Museum there. It's the Museum of Space History. It's a multi-story building, jam-packed.
There's quite a hike out the backside of this thing,
Yeah,
too.
there's quite a hike out the backside, but the inside is filled with all kinds of information. One of the main things we wanted to see there, they didn't even have on display. The people that worked there didn't even know what we were talking about, but they had some portraits of many famous people that had something to do with space, like Picard.
Yeah, well, the one guy said that they rotate through. Remember?
Yeah,
You'd mentioned there was some portraits
they were
in the basement, in the closet, or whatever.
They were still kind of iffy. We're like, well, it's on your website, and we wanted to see the picture of Werner von Braun, and we're just going to take off on some different people and their part in the history of, we'll call it the space history. In the last nugget, we talked about the editor of Discover magazine had talked about how his interest in space and astronomy and cosmology was linked to comic books. And we had made the comment that a lot of the, quote, scientists got their interest in fantasy and fiction. They had this whole wall of time frames of different events that happened in space history, and they also had all these cases filled with patches, and in one of the future nuggets we're going to talk about some of those patches. But today we wanted to focus on Robert Goddard.
March 16th of 1926, Robert Goddard launched the first liquid-fueled rocket in Auburn, Mass. We're going to go there here shortly, right?
Yeah, in a couple months, we're going to go by there. There's just a little park there. I think it was like on his aunt's farm or something,
like
but now they have a memorial park, and we're going to go there and see it.
But that is cool.
It's real cool.
The first launch of a liquid rocket.
It says that the rocket motor at the top burned liquid oxygen and gasoline. Its 184-foot, 2.5-second flight marked the birth of modern rocketry. But at the museum, we found this bit of information. The title says, "Where did rocket science come from?"
Well, notice who's up on the picture there. Werner von Braun and Jules Verne. Imagine that.
Well, let's see what it says about Jules Verne. Jules Verne wasn't a scientist, but a science fiction writer. Ta-da! The connection. Some of his novels are Journey to the Center of the Earth, From the Earth to the Moon, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Around the World in 80 Days, Mysterious Island, Master of the World, and Robber the Conqueror. These books inspired many future scientists and inventors, such as our key person today,
Robert Goddard.
One of the places that we have gone to is Roswell, New Mexico, and we all know what Roswell is famous for, and we're not going to go down that track. But one of the cool things that we saw was one of the locations of where Goddard had worked for a little over a decade and lived in Roswell and had done some experiments. We drove out north of town and out a dirt road onto a portion of someone's farm to see the site where he had tested rocket ship models back in the 1930s. The site isn't maintained and has a few abandoned structures remaining. It was neat to stand where Dr. Goddard once worked, birthing New Mexico's aerospace industry. According to the Roswell Museum, they have this statement. In 1898, a teenage Robert Hutchins Goddard, captivated by the realism of H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, imagined how wonderful it would be to make some device which had eventually the possibility of ascending to Mars. He began enthusiastically filling notebooks with ideas for getting off the planet. As a graduate in physics at Clark College in Worcester, Massachusetts, his hometown, he conducted simple tests with gunpowder that suggested it was indeed possible to construct a rocket for space travel. And that's just what he did in Auburn, Massachusetts. They do have a replica of his workshop at the Roswell Museum and Art Center, and they also have his tower, the tower they dismantled that he used out on this site, and they have it downtown in Roswell. And I just got off the phone with a gentleman from the museum, and he was trying to help me remember exactly how we got out to that rocket site. And one of the cool things he told me was that the house that Goddard lived in on Mescalero and Atkinson Street,
it's still there.
set back in some pecan trees. So the next time we're in Roswell, that's going to be one of our...
Well, go check that out.
The museum does focus a lot on Goddard because he lived there for so long. One of the reasons that he moved to Roswell is because of the good year-round climate. And he lived there for 12 years. During this time, Goddard and his crew made major strides on practical matters of launch control, tracking, and recovery. 17 of 56 flights accomplished in Roswell reached altitudes of over 1,000 feet. We went out to that site and walked around.
It's interesting, too, because if at that time, if one of those rockets would have blown up, wouldn't have hurt much out there.
No, it wouldn't have. Way out there in someone's farm field. We just wanted to tell you a little bit of information about Goddard and his connection to fiction and fantasy. In the next nugget, we'll move on to someone else and show how this is just a recurring theme.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, hope you enjoy these nuggets and we'll share them with your friends and family. Help us grow our channel. Thank you.